news for West Ham fans this evening. Makes a nice change, doesn't it? But the good news is that Maxwel Cornet is back in training. Lewis Orford has signed his first professional contract with the club. And Rafa Benitez does not want to join West Ham United. And yes, okay. It depends on your views on Rafa. Is whether you class that as good news or not. You can probably guess my opinion. But the latest on Rafa is that he's been approached, he's been unofficially sounded out about potentially taking over from David Moyes should West Ham sack the manager. And his response is, no short-term contract please. That deal that some clubs give out at this point in the season, which is, here's a 4-month contract, keep us up, big bonus for you. Rafa's not interested. He doesn't want one of them. He would want a 3.5-year deal to persuade him to join the Hammers, should they sack David Moyes, of course. But he's also got a couple of unanswered concerns that would need verifying before he signs on the dotted line. I can only imagine what they are. Hi, Mr. Sullivan. Question 1, how much would I have to spend in the summer? Question 2, what is my bonus for keeping West Ham in the Premier League? And question 3, when are you selling up and off? I mean, it's probably not that. I'm just making it up. I'm trying to be funny. I apologise. But that's the latest on Rafa Benitez. But the point is, he probably can make that demand. That 3.5-year contract, I won't sign anything unless he's in a position to do that. Or should I say, David Sullivan is in a position that allows Rafa to do that. The proof is at the club, David Moyes. But it's not just that. Whenever there's a potential manager change at West Ham, Rafa is at the top of that list when it comes to David Sullivan. And Rafa knows it. He's been approached. He was close to joining us before. So Benitez knows how much Sullivan wants him. So it's 1-0 Benitez before they've even got in the room. Before Moyes has even been sacked, Benitez already has that negotiating power on his side. But the proof is at the club in David Moyes. If we rewind to when Pellegrini was on the verge of being sacked, the last 2-3 weeks of Pellegrini's reign, we all knew the sacking was imminent. It was inevitable. The feelers were out there. They were doing what they're doing at the minute. What we're doing now by approaching the likes of Rafa and seeing if they'd be interested, we were doing that back then at the end of Pellegrini's reign. Now, that's not unusual. That's not uncommon. That's not exclusive to West Ham and David Sullivan. It happens at the majority of Premier League clubs these days. But we were doing it at the end of Pellegrini's time here. Chris Hughton was another name that was getting approached. But the problem was nobody was interested. Nobody wanted the job. Nobody wanted to come to West Ham and take over from Pellegrini. Well, I say that. Nobody David Sullivan was aware of and had approached wanted to come. There's a big difference. There'd be plenty of managers that would come. Sullivan probably doesn't know about them. He probably doesn't know who they are. Des Ebri at Brighton. I'd be surprised if Sullivan had ever heard of him before he rocked up at Brighton. But anyway, I'm going off at a tangent here. But my point was, Sullivan struggled to get a replacement for Pellegrini. In the end, he had to look at the floor and go back and go up to David Moyes, who had just previously told that you're not good enough for West Ham. Away you go. He had to go back to David Moyes, a bit desperate, and say, "Hi Moyes, would you like to return to West Ham?" Desperate Dave had to approach Desperate Dave. The man who had a job that he couldn't find anyone for had to go approach the man who couldn't find a job and say, "Hi man with no job, would you like to fill this job?" And the man with no job said, "Well, ideally not, but I guess I will." And it was an appointment out of desperation on both parties. It wasn't ideal for David Sullivan to go get the man he had previously just dismissed as not good enough for West Ham. And it wasn't ideal for David Moyes to go back to the club who told him he wasn't good enough for West Ham. Moyes felt he deserved more time the first time round, but he had to come back because he couldn't get another job. It was not ideal. Now, how that turned out to be the right decision. We stayed up, we finished 6th, we finished 7th. It was the right appointment. But at that time, Sullivan didn't have a crystal ball. He did not appoint Moyes with confidence that we were going to remain in the Premier League and then go on and get European football. That was not a thing. Sullivan got lucky. Sullivan was desperate and got massively lucky with Moyes coming back in and going and doing what he's done. He's not good at appointing managers. Rafa Benitez knows this. All the power for negotiating to take over from Moyes should this vacancy arise is with Rafa or any other potential candidate out there. And at the minute, by the sounds of it, there's not that many. It's Rafa. Nuno keeps getting flung out there, and I think it's just because the mainstream media just forget he's got a job. He's in Saudi Arabia. He's got a manager's job at the minute. Apparently his buyout clause, if you want Nuno, it's 6 million. As we say, Sullivan ain't paying that. He's not. Nobody's paying that. No Premier League club's paying $6 million to get Nuno back into the league. It's a one-horse race, and I think Benitez knows it. So when I see the reports that Benitez is demanding a 3.5-year contract, I am not surprised whatsoever. My opinion on it, no thank you. Not for 3.5 years. If he came in on that short-term contract that he doesn't want, I could stomach it. I would understand it. Would I be doing cartwheels? No. But fine. It is what it is for the next few months. Needs must. We are in a desperate position, and then we can go again in the summer. Because what we need now, what we need today, is completely different to what we need in the summer. And it doesn't matter whether we stay in the Premier League or whether we get relegated. It's completely different things. Right now, we need a firefighter. We need somebody that's going to come in, somebody that's going to come in with fresh ideas, that can work with the squad that we've got, that is brave, that's not afraid to make big calls, replace, drop big players, bring in players that have been outside the starting 11 for a little while. We need a manager with huge character and personality right now. But come the summer, what we'd be looking for is a little bit different to what we're looking for today. You can go after a more project manager than a younger, more inexperienced manager. I keep seeing Will Still thrown around, and yes, I will do a video on Will Still. Don't worry, Gonzo did once. I thought I'll give that breathing space. But Will Still's, there's little evidence to suggest he could come in and keep us in the Premier League. If it was the summer, it's a completely different proposition. But anyway, back to Rafa. Short term, I could stomach it. Long term, no thank you. I don't like his football. In fact, I hate it. I think it's horrendous. It's not enjoyable whatsoever. We have an issue with David Moyes at the minute for playing defensive football. This guy would also play defensive football. It might work better than what David Moyes' way is currently working. It might be a little bit more efficient. We might keep more clean sheets. We might score a few more goals. But it wouldn't be many. It wouldn't suddenly be scoring 2.5 goals on average for the season. That would not be occurring under Rafa Benitez. Like I said, short term, I get it. Long term, no thank you. Because getting rid of David Moyes is one thing, but it's not a guaranteed success. Just because we get someband else in, it does matter who it is. It can't be anybody but David Moyes, because there's enough examples of where it doesn't work. Southampton, when it got Nathan Jones, look at the disaster. It was an absolute disaster. It's just as easy to get this appointment wrong as it is to get it right. And if we do decide to twist on David Moyes, we need to get it to bang on. Because what would happen? Well, there's literally two things that can happen. We will retain our Premier League status for next season, or we'll get relegated. And we get it wrong, and we're going to get relegated. It's as simple as that. Now, I know what people say, we're going down anyway. I'm not disputing that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I get it. I get that point. But sacking Moyes and employing that person does not guarantee success, in my opinion. You have to get the appointment right. Benitez, short term, maybe. I'm not as confident as I would have been in someone like Sean Dyche coming in. I think if Dyche come in, I'd feel very confident saying, that's it, we're going to stay up now. That's it. With Rafa, I'd be optimistic, but it's more just out of hope than anything. But the long-term possible proposal of Rafa Benitez, it's not for me. And I'm not disputing what he's done in his career as a manager. His CV speaks for himself, what he's won. He's just not my kind of manager. The football is not fun. I wouldn't find it fun. Anyway, that's the Rafa Benitez thing, right? So short term, I'll put up with it. Long term, no thank you. Maxwel Cornet is back in training. Apparently he's looking really good as well. Apparently he's looking quite sharp, which is, well, promising, because we need something, don't we? We need something starting now. Maxwel Cornet could be that something. Now, it feels like there's been an issue between David Moyes and Maxwel Cornet. It feels like there's been an issue. Yes, he's been out injured, but when you listen to what Moyes has been speaking about him and how he's been speaking about him, it doesn't come across very well, does it? You know, in the past press conferences, almost every week he gets asked about Cornet, and his answer's never very warm. It's never like, yes, he's you know, coming back through, he's doing his rehab, hopefully we'll have him back. It's quite the opposite. There's been times he said, I think he's in France, I'm not sure. Not long ago, he got asked for an update on Cornet. He said, I don't have one, I'll have to check. What? I mean, he does have an update. He's the manager of the club. Of course he knows the situation regarding Cornet. It's just the way he's answered it. It's been very unappetising, if that makes sense. But I feel like there's an issue. I don't know. I can only go by what I've heard from David Moyes. But it feels like there's a situation there. It needs to be put to one side now. If there was one, it needs to be put to one side. He's got to do what's best for the team and the club. And that might be Cornet starting on Saturday. Because at the minute, we've looked toothless in attack. And before his injury, which isn't much, there was only a handful of games, but Cornet looked good. He carried danger that nobody else has really carried this season. He's got a little bit of pace about him. He's quite direct. We know he can score from set pieces. He can create goals as well. He's got what we are crying out for. So if there is anything between the two people, Moyes and Cornet, it needs to be parked up. Deal with it in the summer. But for now, we've got to get him back in that team. But it's pleasing to have him in the training. At the end of the day, he's an option we didn't have last week, and I will take it. I am that desperate at the minute for positivity and hope. It's arrived in the form of Maxwel Cornet. Now the last one is Lewis Orford, or Lewis Oxford if you listen to the under-18s highlights on YouTube. That it couldn't have just been me. It wound up. For those that don't know, the club put up the highlights of the under-18s every week, and they beat Norwich City 6-0 at the weekend. So yesterday they put up the highlights, and Orford is in it quite a lot. He's scored, but he's in a lot of the highlights. And every single time the commentator called him Oxford. It's just a small thing. It's just wound me up, especially when these names literally on the screen to read out. But anyway, the club announced today he signed his first professional contract, a 2-year deal for him, which is really, really good news. He comes from a family of West Ham fans as well. He's been at the club since he's about 5 years old or something. Really pleasing. I went to see the under-18s a couple of weeks ago. We beat Stoke 4-1. And there was two players that stood out for me. I'll be honest with you, I turned up looking forward to seeing Callum Marshall in the flesh for the first time, and Mubama started, so I thought, right, come on then, let's see what Mubama's got. And it was the night before the Newcastle game, so obviously he wasn't going to be involved in the first team, so those were the two players I was looking forward to seeing most. And all the, should we call it the household names for the under-18s? I think, you know what I mean. They were all playing. Ollie Scarles was playing. Patrick Kelly was playing. I thought Kelly had a really good game, but I thought the two best players on the pitch that day, or night rather, was George Earthy. I thought he was the best player on the pitch. I thought he was absolutely fantastic in that number 10 role. I thought he was brilliant. The way he was moving, dribbling past players, creating for everybody. I thought he was superb. And I thought Orford was fantastic as well. Scored the first goal of the game. Set up Mubama's first goal. I thought he had a really, really good game playing centre midfield. And a very disciplined role he had with Kelly next to him. Didn't mind dribbling forward. And to be fair, Orford didn't. But very, very pleasing. It was genuinely, I'm not just saying this, it was genuinely the best game I've been to this season, which isn't much because of my situation, but the games I have been, it was just enjoyable to watch. But the football they played was brilliant. The way the front four were fluid, so if Mubama ended out on the left by mistake, Marshall would go up front for the next minute or two and cover for him. They're absolutely brilliant. There were tough tackles were going in, and one of their teammates were in trouble, somebody else would get out there and help him, and it was really refreshing and pleasing to watch, and it's made me want to see more. We play Ipswich tomorrow night in the quarterfinals of the Youth Cup. Hopefully, I imagine we would field a strong team in that again. We did that for the previous round against Stoke. Like I said, Mubama was in there, and there's been some of the lads have now stepped up to the under-21s, but for that game they put them all in the under-18s and basically fielded the strongest possible team. It's good to see us taking that competition serious. It's quite a prestigious trophy at that age group, and I wasn't aware of this, and I only discovered it after we beat Stoke, that it's the first time we've reached the quarterfinals since 2005 when Mark Noble was in the team, and it's disappointing to some. It's disheartening that we haven't achieved just the quarterfinal stage since then. So hopefully the boys go on and win the competition, but it was pleasing to see Orford sign his contract, and there is hope. There is hope now at that age group with Mark Noble involved at the club in the boardroom, sporting director, that is going to help the progress of the youngsters through to the first team, hopefully long term. And what I will say is Mark Noble was at that game, the game at Stoke. I haven't really seen it. I've mentioned a couple of videos now at the end, like this one, but I hadn't really seen it put anywhere that Noble was there, and I quite like that, the fact that they're doing it low key and it's just considered Noble was doing it for the right reasons in that regards. If he turned up and there was, you know, loads of photographers and videos and stuff, it was maybe a bit of a PR piece, but it's not been put up there, so it literally wasn't that. Noble was there just to watch the under-18s, and it was nice to see him there. Like I said, there was no fanfare of that. He just sat there, watched the game and disappeared quietly. There was no, you know, ta-da, look, Mark Noble's turn. It was nothing at all. It was all about the team on the pitch that night, and like I said, it was a bloody good game as well. So if you can get to the under-18s and watch their football, I would advise you do. I'm going to try and grab a couple of games between now and the end of the season myself. If they're ever up this way, then I should certainly attempt. But yeah, there you go. Lewis Orford signed a deal. Really good news. Really pleasing. But there you go. That's my thoughts on Rafa Benitez, my thoughts on Maxwell Cornet, and my thoughts on, well, the under-18s and Lewis Orford. But if you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it, subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow.